What time is it for you?
10 a.m.
Oh, it's good. You're enjoying your coffee.
Yeah, morning coffee. Where are you at?
I'm in France,
Oh, nice.
south of France. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
What about you?
In Boulder, Colorado.
The universe sings.
That's awesome. Were you originally from there?
No, originally from California.
I did a little bit of research and listened to a couple of things, so I know that you've been around, moved around a little bit. So might be a long answer, but how did you end up in Colorado?
Oh, that's a good question. Originally because of an ex-girlfriend, like probably 8 years ago now, 9 years ago, but made a really good group of friends out here and then came back after spent some time traveling for crypto and stuff. And now we all run businesses together and shit.
Oh, that's really cool. So that is that. Do you think that's home for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it here. It's fucking awesome. I live on a river. There's like literally a river right outside. So I just like cold plunge in the river every day and chill and relax. It's fucking awesome.
It sounds like it. I've seen a few pictures. Colorado looks so beautiful.
Yeah. It's fucking great.
Yeah, I've only ever been. I lived in Toronto for a bit, so I went to New York because it was so close. But I've never actually spent much time in the U.S. and I think Colorado is like one of the top places I think I'd go to.
It's just peaceful, bro. You know, like
Mm.
I love living in the mountains and I love like town's only 5 or 10 minutes away. So it's not like I'm crazy far away from anything, but like I also don't have to deal with like I was just in LA last week and it's just a fucking shithole out there. You know, so I
Looks
don't have
like
to
it.
deal with any of that madness.
I get that. Man, yeah, I was really excited about having this conversation. First of all, thank you. You're so like it's always such a surprise when you reach out to dope people who have like a big platform and who have this reach and who you reach out to them hopeful. They're like, yeah, for sure, let's do it. Like you did. It's so yeah, it's really heartwarming to see this level of compassion and just like going with the flow. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, bro. I enjoy doing these things. They're fun.
I bet, and especially because yeah, like reading about you a little bit. Then I also took a stab at listening to that podcast you did very recently, and the our paths. Although it feels like you're a cycle ahead of me, but our paths are a bit like mimicking each other based on the interest that we have, like spirituality and the going through hospitality as a like training ground and psychedelics, and then yeah, obviously Web3 now. So yeah, that's are you aware of, do you know about Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey?
Yep. Hmm.
It's been an important book for me the past few months because it helps, like kind of take a step back from your life and realize, all right, like I'm my own hero on my own journey. And so like, of course I'm going to face struggles, and we all have our story arc, but yours is just like, it goes to extremes
Yeah, it does.
in the past few years. Can you tell me about, we'll go through the rest of your past because there's so much interesting stuff that seems to have happened to you. But like, can you tell me more about like that last part of the arc where you started at the bottom, went to the top, dropped back down, and then started doing your thing again?
Totally, yeah. I am assuming you're talking about kind of this last bull run slash bear run portion.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
right before I got into this last bull run, I was pretty late to it. I was probably like 6 or 8 months late, and that was mostly because when I was Shil Nai, it was like my profile before this. I had gotten like a shit ton of hate on the internet. I had no idea how to deal with it, and so like it just overwhelmed me, and I just left. And I didn't really like have any understanding of like how to navigate that at the time. And so I went back to what I love to do, which is make music. It's just something that's like always been very close to my heart. I'm a pianist since I was like 5 years old. And as I was kind of doing that, other people started to invite me back in the industry again. Like one of my buddies hit me up. He's like, I want you to like help me run this marketing company. Or I want you to run marketing for my company. Like, you're the best marketer I know. I was like, sure. Yeah, that sounds fucking awesome. Why not? You know, I needed money to pay for music anyway. I was working with some big producers and they cost a lot of money. And I had no other real like major financial means at the moment. So I was like, sure, why not? Like, let's play the game again. And as I got back into it, I like helped him build his company, was working on the marketing end. And at the same time, I was also kind of like just dabbling back on Twitter again, like watching, seeing what coins were going well, seeing what NFTs were doing well, all of that different stuff. And that's the reason the function profile got created, was because I saw like, I had a Solana profile at the time. And I saw a ton of people talking about Bored Apes, and I saw a ton of people talking about like what were they called? Wicked craniums. They were the skulls, and they were super fucking sick. And I was just like watching and observing community form in a unique way that I'd never seen before. Through 2017 to 2020, 2019, like if a community was forming, it was around a coin. But there was no actual real connection factor for humans to be able to connect within that community beyond just believing that the coin was going to do well. So people would come in and out of communities a lot more frequently. It would be a lot more rapid, like coin doesn't go up in a couple of weeks. All right, I'm selling it, and I'm no longer XRP Jim. I'm going to just be like crypto Jim,
Absolutely.
And so it was an interesting observation for me, because I really saw how the Bored Apes were coming together, how they were kind of coordinating with one another, and how they were actually really like genuinely supporting one another. I thought that was really interesting. So that was like really why I started the function profile, was to buy a Bored Ape, join the community, fuck around, see what was going on, like see what was like happening. And it really, like, I never intended for the account to grow large. Really like my intention for the account in the very beginning was just like to have exposure in the market and on the social scene, because I wanted a like place that I could observe like trends happening, and I could observe like what was going on with the NFT market. And then once I got in the account, and once I started to communicate with the community a little bit, I realized like there was another opportunity for me. There had been parts of myself that I hadn't like fully expressed before online or in public, and that's what function kind of became for me for a very long time, was this exploration of like, if I hit someone with a dick joke online, like are they going to like freak out? Or like what's going to happen, and it was kind of like or if I start to like stand up for myself in different ways that I like previously hadn't done, where, when someone wants to talk shit, like normally I'd be like, I'd try to do my best to just be like, oh, like I'm going to have compassion for him. He's like in a bad place, but at the same time, like if I'm not actually standing up for myself against that, I wasn't able to like navigate the use of my sword, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that makes sense. Is that what you got out of the previous cycles hates that happened to you? Do you think that's the major breakthrough?
That was one of the major breakthroughs for sure. Because I could see that like people that were talking shit were just in a bad place. Like there's no reason to ever judge a human that you don't know and then curate an entire story in your head about them and then just spew hate at them constantly. Like,
yeah,
it's if you think about it in that terms, it's actually literally illogical. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense, no rational, logical sense at all.
And I was the one experiencing it, so I didn't really understand it. I wasn't like I understood it on a logical perspective, but I like wasn't able to like actually really embody the like place where I wanted to be, which was
of course not
compassion for them, things like that. And then this cycle, when I was function, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a different perspective to it. Like I know to have compassion for them, but at the same time, like I need to defend myself. I need to have a sword. I need to have a shield, like in this fucking spiritual battle that we're in. And so,
and did you take? Oh, sorry. This fascinates me. Did you take conscious steps and methods in order to navigate this, or is this something that happened naturally and subconsciously?
A little bit of both. A lot of it was like subconscious, but like I specifically remember like when I was starting to like grow on Twitter as function, I specifically remember talking to myself and being like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to explore this other side of myself that I haven't really like deeply explored and I haven't ever really deeply expressed. you know, like internally I could like navigate it to a decent degree, but it what like I'd never really learned how to utilize like how to like thin that barrier between the
Yeah.
internal and the external and actually express what was going on for me in the moment, you know. And as I started to do that more, my like profile just got more attention. You know, I think people were like, "Oh, this guy's actually being real. Like he actually like is like standing up for himself, and he's talking shit, and he's having fun."
And he's vulnerable,
Totally.
which is like that's one of the stuff I love the most about like your online presence.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. And that the vulnerability honestly has like been more of an evolution over the last couple months, because like in the bull run, I was just more like trying to like cut down all the bullshit, you know, and not letting people kind of like attack me for no fucking reason, and starting to really stand up for myself and like regain like dignity with the community, but also regain like my own personal dignity and my own personal self-respect. You know, you let people beat you up for too long, you let people talk shit or judge you, and like, if you don't say something, eventually you start to believe it, you know, and you're like, oh, well, maybe I am a piece of shit. And I know I'm not. I know I'm a fucking great human. So I was just like, it was an opportunity, and still is an opportunity for me to learn how to like have the right defenses up to navigate in such a like harsh and volatile ecosystem.
Yeah. I wouldn't even call those back. It's more of a like, because there's this thing of like push and pull in the universe and our relationships, and defense is like, you attack me, I'm going to fight back, which in your case is just like, and I think like it seems like one of the reasons you blew up so much is that you're being your true self. You're just being yourself. You're just, if someone is throwing something at you, you're just like throwing back in their face like, yeah, no, like what you're projecting onto me is, that's not it. This is who I am, and I'm gonna be a dick. I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you dick jokes, and like, because defense is really when you get hurt.
Yeah.
Which you don't seem to that much anymore.
I think there's a difference between defense and defensiveness. You know, like when I say defense, I mean more of just like making sure that it's exactly what you say, like being myself and not wavering to the opinions or the perspectives that other people have of me. When you get defensive, it's when somebody actually starts to poke and prod at your insecurities, and then you have to attack them back because you're insecure. And there was also a little bit of that mixed in as well. You know, I'm still like a human. I'm still learning to navigate all of it.
Never-ending process.
And that's kind of been the process with Function 2.0. Like I made a couple posts about it, but really what that means to me is like an integration of all the parts, rather than like only being a dick or only being like compassionate or only being this or only being that. Because like as a human, I have like so many different like ways that I've created myself, and like so many different pieces and parts that encompass who I am. And Function 2.0 is kind of like bringing all of those parts together in a way that's actually formatable and formidable in the real world.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's this whole thing of like persona building, which people take in and are like, all right, I need to build my persona. I need to build how I'm going to look like online. And so it creates, one of the things that you said on that previous podcast is something that I've personally thought of, but haven't managed to do, because I think I use Twitter, but inside pretty much hate Twitter, is it's become an extension of you. And so for you, there's not this dissonance that there is in millions of people of who they are and who they're trying to be, which like plays into the ego, plays into the inner feedback loop. And so it's not a surprise that people vibe with you and that you seem fulfilled on this leg of the journey.
Totally. Yeah. And it's been a big journey, you know. I mean, I made a bunch of money and was like, got a lot of attention last bull run. You know, I had like all these celebrities in my DMs and rappers being like, yo, how do I do this NFT stuff? Tell me about it, bro. You know? And to a degree, my ego actually did get like enlarged too much, which is kind of why I think I lost all my money, was because I just got into this place where internally my intentions were still very good, and I was still like navigating the world the best I could. And on the external, like I actually like, it's interesting because the way I kind of look at it is I actually got like, when you get so much validation from who you like are perceived to
Mm.
be, naturally the ego just wants to repeat the same things that you did to get that validation. And since I still like hadn't, and even to a degree still haven't, I'm still learning, but at that point I still hadn't fully encompassed like my ability to accept all of myself. You know,
Mm.
there were still parts of me that were like, I was pushing away in my subconscious and just being like, it's okay, I don't want to look at that, like I'm this guy now, you know, which is what Function 2.0 is about, is like encompassing all of it. But since I wasn't really like fully accepting like all of the parts, then I got stuck actually a little bit in the parts of myself that were getting validated, you know. And so as I
Yeah,
started
of
to like
course.
get more and more attention and more money, I started to notice I was just being a dick for no reason. You know what I mean? Sometimes unprovoked, you know, which
Mm.
like isn't really who I am. I'm not really a person that like wants controversy or like wants to fight for no fucking reason. Like if you come at me, like I'll come back at you. Don't get me wrong. But I have
Mm.
no intention of like going out and like starting fights and being a dick just so I can get a little bit of attention here and there, which I think like a lot of people do. And so, yeah, for me, I was just kind of like sitting back and just like observing a lot of that throughout this bear market and realizing how parts of myself had gotten stuck within like the way that other people perceived me rather than who I actually was. And started to see that like while the quote unquote dickish side of function of myself was true, like that's part of who I am. Like I want to be able to like say what's on my mind. I
Mm.
want to be able to like stand up for myself or stand up for the things that I believe in. I believe that's like very, very important as a man in this world. Like I also learned that I probably wasn't doing it as strategically and as skillfully as I possibly could. And I had been almost ignoring or putting aside like a part of my heart that really cares and really like cares about people, cares about the industry, cares about what I'm building, cares about like the way that like quite frankly the way that I'm viewed as well, you know,
Yeah.
and my reputation per se. And so it was like a lot of the bear market has been just like a massive humbling experience for me to realize like like I had put money like way too high on a pedestal, you know, and had like I had fallen into the traditional trap that most people fall into when they make money, is now all of a sudden I'm a better person because I have money. That makes no fucking sense, and it's not true.
Mm.
And I'd fallen into that a little bit. And then also be just like noticing how like I hadn't built the necessary structures in my like spiritual body or my physical body or my mental body to even like hold or withstand the pressure that a lot of finance and a lot of attention brings you. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is like you end up in this place where you get a lot of money or you get a lot of attention, and then all of a sudden everything starts to collapse in around you. And so I'm actually really grateful for the experience of losing most of my money, of kind of going dormant for a little bit in the bear market, because it brought me back into remembering like more of what I really give a fuck about. And it brought me back to be able to encompass more of the pieces together rather than just like getting stuck into one piece and not being able to like move through it, you know? And
I
so
do.
like I think it's in the Bible it says, like, I don't know the exact quote, but it says like God says to be quick to anger but also be quick to release it, you know? And so like that's been like a big practice for me, is like not allowing myself to ignore the anger, but also not allowing myself to
Mm.
get stuck in the anger when I'm there, and allowing myself to just like release it, let it go, or any emotion per se, really. And that's been a little bit of a ramble, but that's kind of like what
I
function two.
love it.
Yeah, that's what function.
If that's what you do when you ramble, you keep doing that, and I just listen.
Yeah, that's kind of what function 2.0 means to me, is like, how do I encompass more of who I am And also, how do I accept more of who I am? Because I realized that in my old profile and even as Fxnction for a while, like people were poking at my insecurities and it was causing me to react. And so it's like, how do I like, the only way to actually resolve that is to accept all of the parts of myself that I don't accept. And now as I'm accepting more of them, I'm realizing like people can say whatever the fuck they want. I'm not really tripping on it, you know, like keep talking shit about whatever I've done in the past or my spirituality or this or that. Go for it. Like have a fun time. Like I love myself. I know who I am, and I'm okay with every single thing that I've done.
Do you know who Peter Crone is?
No, I never heard that.
Incredible guy, and you particularly, I think, would love him. His nickname is the Mind Architect. I think this is the quote that I've like repeated, told people the most in the past 4 or 5 years, and he says something along the lines of, "Life will bring you events and relationships that show you where you're not free," and this is exactly what you've been describing, and what this ties into, that popped out to me when you were talking, was we all have our internal feedback loop for like self-love and validation. And for a vast majority of people, and that's not their fault, it's largely due to the society that we live in that has been kind of built that way for various reasons. The feedback loop is mostly based on like outside metrics. You were talking about, yeah, I'm being a dick, and it's getting me likes and it's getting me more attention. Like, of course, this is going to be my comfort zone. And because we're such like subjective animals, it takes you weeks or months to realize it, because your mind has said, all right, like this is my metric for validation. It's likes, it's follows, it's dope people messaging me in my DMs. So I'm going to keep doing that. But what's missing is what is really important and what you seem to embody like very deeply. And it is like you're really letting it come back inside and you really question it. What are practices? What's advice that you would give someone who is either in your position of like starting to see success in their life, and to make sure that they like keep their feet into the ground and don't go through that very valuable lesson, but also very painful, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of it is like patience, you know, it's kind of a buzzword, but in reality, like what I mean by that is like when life starts to come at you quickly and starts to bring you more and more and more opportunities or more attention or whatever it might be, like I'm learning a lot how to be slow in making the decisions around those. It's something I definitely haven't mastered. It's something that I'm definitely still working on deeply. But I realized like very recently that while some opportunities may be financially beneficial or like beneficial to clout and attention and all of those games, they might not actually be beneficial to what I really want. And one of my deep practices, it's something that I'm really working on, is like being as grounded and as rooted in like my desire of what I actually want in my life, and allow my choices and my decisions to kind of formulate around that. For a very long time, I had no idea what the fuck I wanted. For the majority of my life, I had no fucking idea what I wanted. And I would just try new things out, and I'd be kind of just like, I'm going to do music, or I'm going to do some crypto stuff. I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to test out different waters and see what like kind of like sparks and inspires my heart the most. And now like a lot of my practice is like, as I'm learning more about that, to be slower in my decision making so that I can be more in like connection with myself when I'm actually making the decision, you know, because a lot of the times I can fall into like the hype or the excitement in the short term and just be like, oh, well, this looks fucking sick. This is like fucking awesome. And then like later on, after I've made the decision, after I've been down the road a little bit, I'm like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or is this really how I want to be spending my time and my energy? And if you do that, it can get really confusing. So a lot of my, I guess one of my main piece of advice is just to be like patient with yourself and realize like, A, like you're exactly where you need to be. And then B, like you just don't need to compare yourself to other people. I spent a lot of my life comparing myself to other people and watching and observing how their lives were going, perceiving that they were happy, or how I was perceiving that they were successful, or whatever it was, without knowing their deeper intentions, without knowing their own internal experience. A lot of people with a smile on their face are absolutely fucking miserable. And so, yeah, that's been the second really deep piece of advice, is like learning what you want, and then like navigating through that without like, and doing your best. Cause I think like you can draw inspiration off of other people, but it's not always about like trying to compare yourself to them and then become like them, or become the same as them.
Yeah, again with the internal feedback loop. Really, a few years ago, I had a major breakdown, major burnout, depression, like everything you want to call it. And I realized that I had very misguided discipline, and that I was overtly analytical in the way I lived my life. And somehow 4 years ago, I think I made this decision. All right, like my brain is not really serving me, like me analyzing every situation and trying to get the best objective outcome out of every situation. And so I decided I'm going to train my intuition, and I'm going to start to rely only in my intuition. And I think this is what you're describing to me as well, because the loudest voice is not always the best one, because there's hype, there's FOMO, there's other people telling you something, which is a big thing in our specific industry. And listen to the quieter, deeper, more grounded voice that might not be the best objective solution, but that is definitely the best solution for you. Does that resonate?
100%. Yeah, that's been a big part of my practice, is like a lot of people are always talking about hustle mentality, and that means to like constantly be working and constantly grinding until you're successful. I actually don't take that approach. It's not that I don't work, because I put a lot of time and effort into the things that I do, but I don't work to the point where like I'm disconnected from myself.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do that. They sit on the computer all day and they're like, I have to find something to do or else I feel unproductive. I'm more in the standpoint of like, where a lot of my time is like spent laying around during the day, to be honest with you. And like, not in an unproductive way where I'm just like napping or just like zoning out and not doing anything. No, like a lot of my time is just spent focused on my breathing, and spent like focused on like navigating like my internal world, and like building up like energetic centers where I can hold things to a greater degree and stay a little
I love this.
Yeah, right. Stay a little bit more like focused and energized. Because I realized that like action's great. You can act as much as you want. But sometimes if you start to like, if you're unaware of your insecurities and you're unaware of how they're leading you, then your actions actually become irrelevant and sometimes deter you from your actual goal, because you'll just be scattered everywhere. You're like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this, And so I do my best to take very intentional actions and work when like I need to work, rather than work all the time and think that I need to work all the time. And a lot of that's just revolved around me. Like it's 10:30 a.m. here. You know what I mean? Like usually I'd be up at 6 a.m. I'd be working out. I'd be like doing all the stuff. And it's not to say I don't do my morning routines. I do. I have good morning routines, but like 30 minutes before this call, I could have like banged out 100 emails and done a bunch of stuff. But instead I just like laid on my couch and was just like, okay, cool. I'm just going to like sit down and just like breathe and relax my body and just get ready for the interview.
How did you learn that? Did you have like major inspirations or like, people you've listened to or things you've done that have led you to have this approach?
Yeah, really good mentors and really good friends. Like my friends are, some of my friends are my mentors, and through their guidance and also through some like very deep and challenging times that like I could have tried to hustle to get out of, but it would have resulted in me still feeling like complete shit no matter how much money I had. I realized that like it's like the game of life is much more of an internal game than an external game. And I think a lot of people like weigh heavily on the external. they weigh heavily on what they have to do outside. I weigh a lot more heavily on what I have to do inside, because when I feel good, like things come to me, events happen, people I'm supposed to meet, I meet. It's almost like a silent alignment with God. And like the more that I can like continue to kind of
Not
like,
almost, it is.
yeah, it is exactly. And it's like it's more I can like align myself and be like relaxed and patient and things like that. Like that's honestly when I've made my best trades as well. Like when I'm like laying around and I'm just like relaxing, and then one moment I'm like, all right, let me get on Twitter, and all of a sudden I'm on Twitter and somebody's talking about some coin. It's the first post
And
I see. And yeah,
yeah.
I'm just like, cool. I guess I'll just take a little bet on that, throw a couple $100 in, like lay around. A couple days later, it's worth a few grand. Like that's how a lot of the majority of my capital was curated last bull run, was me just being really relaxed and going with the signs rather than searching for the signs. And I think that's like, A, why people get kind of stuck in crypto, is they're always looking for something. And then B, that's also why I think, like, I was just in an argument with some guy on Twitter. He's bragging about how much money he has. And I'm just like, I don't really care how much money you have, bro. You're acting like an asshole, And I think that's also what happens to people, is they make a lot of money and then their ego takes over. They're like, I did this. I made it. I'm the fucking best. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're also a miserable piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, you're also being a dick to another human being over a piece of paper that was printed by the government. Like, get some like gain a little bit of perspective here. You know what I mean? And so it's one of the things that I constantly try to preach as much as I can, as well as like stand for, because I think, like, I was deeply in the spiritual community before I came into crypto, and a lot of people there understood it and they were like embodied it really well. But when I got into crypto, I realized like not a lot of people get this shit. Like most people still think that like most people replace God with money in their lives.
That's not even just in crypto. That's everywhere around us. And it's the same thing we were talking about before, where you have your feedback loop all messed up, and your way to validate yourself is something on the outside. Money, toys, women, you name it. Like, I was deeply miserable for a long time in my life, until like I was 25 or something. And I realized I had built my entire validation system through outside things. I was telling my mom when I was like 10, I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, who the fuck tells their mom at 10 that they're going to be a millionaire? And I was dreaming of yachts, and I was dreaming of like having a beautiful trophy wife. And I didn't know why. I didn't understand that it was and this is exactly what's happening. You're focused on that one thing on the outside, and you're completely neglecting what's happening on the inside, and not realizing that you're trying to fill up something in you that's never going to be filled up with those things. But you have your own narrative in your mind, and so you believe you do until you don't, and then you crash.
Exactly. And I realized, like, I want all those things too. I want cars and I want big houses. I want all that stuff, but I don't want to chase them based on the fulfillment of the emptiness that I feel inside. Like, I don't want to try to fill the holes in myself with material things. I'd rather fill them with like the structural, the necessity, like the necessary spiritual structures that will make me feel good, whether I have everything or whether I have nothing. And that's been a big practice for me, is like really just trying to tame that beast. Cause I think we all have like that beast. It's like the ego, or however, like demons, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's like the beast that you have to like harness, like, and if you let it run loose, like, you might make a bunch of fucking money. You might be super rich, like, congratulations, but you're still going to feel empty inside,
Probably more.
Probably a lot more, because like eventually, like not to get crazy, but I think that's where all the like weird Hollywood shit comes from, like the adrenochrome and all this weirdo like blood rituals those people do. Like, I think they just like reach the pinnacle of success and they still feel empty, and they're like, why do I still feel empty? Well, I have to fucking do something. I have to take it to the next level, and it becomes demonic. And so it's a big practice for me. I'm not an expert at it. I won't ever claim I am, but it's something that I'm like constantly trying to navigate and like work through to figure out like how I can at least create some sort of structural reality for myself where I feel good and where I can support the other people around me and make them feel better and relaxed and yeah, build a life that like God would be proud of and that I'm proud of, you know. I think that's like I like a lot of what Andrew Tate says, you know, that he's a very controversial
Huh, I was
person.
going to ask you. I was going to ask you about him before when you were talking about man and men's role in
Yeah.
society.
I think he's a very controversial person. A lot of people don't like some of the things he says. I don't agree with everything he says by any means, but there are some really, really good important points. And one of the things that I like have been watching recently from him is like he's like, I don't wake up and I don't think about how can I be happy today. I think about how can I be proud of myself, you know.
Mm.
And that was not a structure that I ever had in my life, and it's something that I'm embodying more. Like I always used to, like my mom always used to ask me like, oh, are you happy, are you happy? And I'd always be like, no, I'm fucking miserable. What like and like am I supposed to be happy? And so I think I found myself chasing happiness a as a goal or as a main focal point of my reality. And it wasn't until recently where I was like, you know what, like I'm not going to be happy all the fucking time. Like that's actually not what life's about. Like I actually agree with Andrew on this. Like I want to be proud of myself. Like I want to like say that when I go to bed every night, like I did my fucking push-ups and I lifted my weights and I did the business that I needed to handle. And I treated people who with respect, who treated me with respect. And I stood up for myself in the areas where I was being disrespected, you know? And that's kind of, it's seeming to be more of a fulfilling life by taking that perspective rather than like always chasing happiness. Like when I was always chasing happiness, I'd just be fucking high all the time, to be honest, you know? Like chasing
Well,
myself.
yeah, it's the only thing that's going to keep you happy all the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Whether it's
It,
actually doing drugs or whether it's like trying to make that 100x leverage trade, like there was always a
mm,
high I was chasing.
always the dopamine. Man, it's what's insane is that this is, I started to, there's this company called, I think it's called the School of Life, and they have book series, and one of them is Great Thinkers, and they kind of dumb down most philosophers philosophies, and so you can learn from them. And I was just starting again, and I think it's Plato or Aristotle. I think one of them actually way back then was saying chasing happiness is like you're gonna go straight into the wall. Instead, you should chase fulfillment, because, and that's also something that I think you were talking about in that other conversation. Life is cyclical. You're going to have ups and you're always going to have downs. And what's problematic is that, for example, for women, it's more clear. Like, okay, they hate having, like, the menstrual cycle can be a pain, but at least it's a good like external indication of I need to cool down. I'm not going to feel at my best around those days. Whereas us men, we still go through those cycles. We're going to have ups and we're going to have downs. And for some, it's more extreme than others. But we don't have this physical external thing that shows us. And because we're so, I was going to ask you before if the terms like masculine energy in the universe and feminine energy resonate with you. Like masculine, which we like, both men and women have masculine energy and both men and women have feminine energy, and our society breeds people who like rewards people who have more masculine energy. And so us men were pushed in that direction of like pushing, working, doing the tasks, having like misplaced discipline. And then you realize, oh, so for the past, in my case, like for the past 25 years, I haven't been respecting myself at all. Like, of course we're going to crash.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's like a balance of the masculine and feminine energy. You know, I don't think you should ever like lean so hard into your feminine that you're like always crying and you're always whimpering and you're always, oh, this life's so hard.
Mm.
I've been there, I've done it. So I don't think that's the right path because you actually don't get anything done. And then
Yeah.
there's also like the over hyper masculine like energy. I don't think there's anything wrong with
Tell me
these
about
type of
it.
guys, but like the David Goggins of the world, like love David Goggins. I think his message is awesome. I think he's like promoting health and he's promoting being like a strong individual. But at the same time, like you can't take that mentality with your heart, whether you're a man or a woman,
Mm.
like, and especially as a man, like you can't be like always, I'm hard, stay hard. Like I got to do everything raw. Like it doesn't work. Like you might be able
Yeah.
to push through like some hard times, but you're also not going to have a very fun life. Like you're not going to feel very connected with people. You're not going to ever like have like really deep intimate relationships with your boys or with other women. Like it's just not it's not the full way to take it.
I so agree with
I
you.
think it's individual, but I think it all like it requires a very unique like balance of the two energies as a man, and knowing like when to be like in your masculine, and then when also to have compassion and when to have empathy for people,
Yeah.
and when to not be a complete dick.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to what you were saying before, it's good to emulate. It's good to get inspired by guys like the Andrew Tates and the David Goggins and the like Cameron Haynes and all of these guys. But don't copy. Like don't make their personality your personality. I think these guys are extremely necessary for the times we live in because the amount of weak men, particularly, is through the fucking roof.
Yep.
It's absolutely crazy. Like this saying of tough times breed tough men, tough men breed easy times, and easy times breed weak men.
Yep.
We're in this right now, and so I don't like everything Andrew Tate says, or at least I don't like everything he's said in the past, and I don't like the way some of the things he said have been framed. Because like I've listened to a few long-term, I was like dead against Andrew Tate because I'd only consumed like the short form content.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw this friend of mine who's a dude I absolutely respect, super intelligent, super driven, like a guy I really resonate with. And he was posting about Andrew Tate and it was like, what? You're like, not you, man. Come on, you're better than this. And then he hit me with stuff. And he sent me the Patrick Bet David interview. And then I started listening to like the longer form content. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm not going to call myself an Andrew Tate fan, but I think he has. There's a reason why many, many millions of people gravitate around him because he has a powerful message to share, although a way to share it that is controversial.
He's intense about it. He's super intense about it, and I think like the short form content gets miscued very often. It's very easy to do that. I've had people take things that I've said and just throw them completely out of context and spin me into a bad light. So I understand that. And at the same time, like, I think a lot of what he's talking about is so relevant to men right now, which is why he's so popular. Like, again, I don't agree with everything
100%.
he says. I think like a lot of the things he says though are very, very on point for like how a man should be living. Like he should be stoic, he should be focused on his health and providing for himself. Then once he has the capacity to provide for the women around him and his family and the people that he cares about. Like it's a basic masculine principle that like will make our world a better world if more men can embody those specific principles. But like, yeah, I also think he's probably making videos a lot different than he made them when he would get 100 views. You know what I mean? When you're getting 100 million views, like you're your level of respect for the influence that you have changes versus when like there's 20 people on a live stream watching you just talk shit. And
That's for
life kind
sure.
of forces you to become more of a strategic and structured individual in your message.
Yeah. And especially after you've been through such a intense, like the past 2 years for him, or a year and a half, I don't know the exact timing, must have been so impactful, and have, like, he presents a strong front, but he also seems extremely self-aware, and like he knows himself and listens to himself. And so what he's gone through has probably taught him a lot as well. And it seems to show. I'm getting back into like combat sport soon, and so I saw the gloves behind you.
Yeah. Did a kickboxing.
Nice. And I've been getting back into like that kind of content, and so he's popped up a few times, and so you get into his daily life, and you see that he truly fucking cares. He's not perfect, and like, who's gonna claim they are, but he's very, like, he cares, and he knows himself, and he stands up for himself the way you were saying it. And yeah, love him or hate him, you can't not respect him,
Yeah,
I think.
100%. Yeah, I definitely respect a lot of the things that he says. It's very relevant to me, Like after I went through a breakup over the last couple of years, I was just kind of like laying around, not doing shit. And then I start seeing Andrew Tate on my feed. He's like, "What the fuck you doing? Like, get up, work out." And now all of a sudden I'm working out every day, and I do contribute a lot of it to his message of just like, he's right. Like when I look back at the last bull run in my experience, like there were like obviously factors like outside of my control, but at the same time, like I made a lot of money, and I hadn't built up like the necessary structures for myself. And we've been talking a lot about the spiritual, but I'm also talking about like the physical too. Like if I have millions of dollars and I'm flipping JPEGs for 100K sitting on my computer every day, like, should I just be laying on my couch smoking weed, watching Netflix? Like, I mean, I could, it's not wrong to per se, but if I want to build like a life for myself where I'm like a strong individual mentally, spiritually, and physically, like I should be spending a lot of that time working out. I should be spending a lot of that time like building up my body and the structural integrity of my body and how I can hold myself in the world, and that's been like a main focus for me during this bear market is like, how do I build the necessary structures internally and externally so that when the next wave does come, I don't find myself in the same position where I'm looking for escape routes all the time. And I'm always looking to get high in order to avoid the stress that I feel. And I'm always looking to do this or do that or do this or do that. I'm like, lack of a better word, I'm like restructuring my coping mechanisms, because life isn't life isn't easy, especially as a man, and it hasn't gotten any easier the older I get. So I'm going to immediately assume like hopefully it gets easier. And but I think the only way it does get easier is if I get stronger as an individual, and I'm able to hold it better, and I'm able to work with it better, and I'm able to interface with life better,
Man, life is suffering. It's one of the first, like, biggest Buddhist principles. And the minute you accept it and take it as truth, it kind of changes your outlook on everything, because it's true. Like, life is not easy for anyone. There are people who have it like objectively better or worse, but the human experience is not an easy one. It just isn't, because we and especially during those times, like, there's so many ways to get triggered, so many ways to feel beat down. And I so resonate with what you're saying. I went through a very similar experience. Got together with my girlfriend a bit over 2 years ago, and then launched my Web3 project around that time as well. And those two were extremely draining. My girlfriend and I did a lot of like inner work together, so it was really intense, and I learned so much. But it was taking a lot of energy. And then you had Web3. the Web3 project during the last 8 months of the bull market and then the beginning of the bear market. So I can like, you know what it's like. And I used to work out so much. I was so like physically strong in the past 2-3 years ago. And then after a while, I was like feeling so soft and feeling so weak, and even like breath getting tricky going upstairs or like walking a hill. And I was like, holy shit, like I can't do that. Discipline is not about just like being in front of the computer every day. You need to have like holistic discipline about everything. And also because body speaks to mind, speaks to soul. And so if one of those is not taken care of, it's bound to affect the other one.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I look at myself last bull run, and I could barely walk fucking couple miles, bro, without being exhausted. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know.
Like what? And what else would I expect if I'm just sitting on the computer all day, turning on Netflix and trading NFTs on my computer? You know, it's been a long time since I put like decent effort into like my physicality. You know, I'm much more been like more of a mental person, just like, okay, I can figure it out in my mind. Which is true. Like I'm a very smart and intellectual individual, but I also like am, as I start to build up my body more, I'm like realizing, wow, this is a lot easier, or like I'm able to flow a lot easier. Like it's a lot more fluid when I have all of the pieces like starting to come together, rather than like overly focused on spiritual or mental, or only focused on physical. Like it's almost like the encompass of the triad is what makes you like strong and like effortlessly like able.
Yeah, and present for me. Present is the one that really popped out recently when I was starting to get back into the physical. I'd been working a shit ton and then went out for a workout. I was in Sweden and like in Gothenburg. So I went to a park, like typical Sweden. So it was quite inspiring in and of itself. And I went for a workout. Presence for me is kind of like my guideline of how well I'm doing inside. The more present I feel, the less in my head projecting, feeling anxious to a certain degree as well is a good indicator. I went for that workout. And then I came out of it. I was so aligned. I was so sharp and so focused and present, like right there and right now. And when you're doing this, you're so, I don't know if you've ever gone the Joe Dispenza route. Yeah.
Listen to him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he explains that when you're present, your brain frequency changes, your like magnetic, your aura, quote unquote, changes. And yeah, you feel it because what you were describing before of like things just magically start to happen to you. Things that would normally have needed you to work like 4 hours on, you solve in 45 minutes. And it also ties back into what you were saying before of sometimes you just need to lie on the couch and just be with yourself and just think. And instead of like hustling away at the computer trying to get that thing done, and yeah, at times you just need to sit down, meditate for 15 minutes, and then you get back to the computer and everything happens magically for you.
100%. Not a question. It's a complex game that can be made very simple, but it's your choice.
It is, and it's one of balance. Man, that part of the conversation was absolutely fucking awesome. But I would love to talk about marketing.
Sure.
No, you know what? Actually, I want to talk about trading because it seems to have been an important part of your journey. Although everything has seemed pretty important. What clicked? What was the moment when you were trading and you went from like what the fuck is happening to me to all right, this is working out and I'm good at this and I'm going to keep doing that.
I wouldn't claim to myself to be the best trader, but I am good at like finding signals or seeing signals in social consensus that allows me to be early, especially on NFTs. And that's probably my like unique trading strategy that's different from everybody else. You know, some people do the charts and the TA, other people do whatever. I observe social consensus. That's my thing. And when I can observe like something growing early enough and make an educated guess or an educated bet on it, then I have the ability to play that game to a different degree, you know? And so I think like Bored Apes was my very first one. You know, I was not very early, but I was early enough. I was at like 5 ETH before they had a big run up, 10 ETH, something like that, and started to just trade them and started to observe how I was really, really good at the social consensus mechanism. My second play, that was probably the second best play, was the Mutant Apes. You know, like they would sat at 3 ETH for forever, 3.5 ETH. And I just started buying them. And I just kept telling everybody, these are mispriced. They're just underpriced. If Bored Apes are at 50 ETH and they're a 10,000 collection, and Mutants are a 20,000 collection, then technically they should be somewhere around the 20 to 25 ETH mark, but they're at 3 ETH. So there's a huge upside for them. And with the popularity of Bored Apes, like I could observe that more people wanted to get into the club at a affordable price. And so I played that really well. And then probably one of my biggest successes was the D-Gods play. You know, like I was buying D-Gods since the day they came out. I started buying them, you know.
What did you see in them like that early?
I saw Frank, man. You know, I saw... to be honest, I wasn't sure at the very beginning. I was never very sure until Dust and Dead Gods came out. Frank and I had created like a good relationship with each other online. I was supporting him. He like gave me an honorary. We did all the stuff back and forth. And then when Dead Gods came out, he messaged me maybe a week before they came out or 2 weeks before they came out. And he was like, hey, bro, we've got this whole, like, we're scrapping the paper hand bitch tax. We've got this whole new mechanism. It's called Dust, and you're gonna stake your D God. You're gonna get Dust, and you can upgrade your D God to a Dead God. And he showed me one of the pieces of art. Immediately, I was like, I told him, I remember in DMs, I'm no longer minting random shit. I'm only buying.
I'm just buying D Gods.
Yeah, and that's when I got it. 5. And it wasn't just because of that though, because like honestly, like the Dust could have flopped, the Dead God concept could have flopped. The art's cool, but it's not like the art was the thing that made me immediately buy all of them, you know, and go, oh, this is sick. No, it was really what it was when Frank messaged me that, I saw a founder who had the capacity to pivot, you know, and someone who I knew that he wasn't giving up. And back in old Solana times, like that's a rare quality. Like there were hundreds, if not thousands of projects that I had cycled through in that 6-month period from when D-Gods launched till Dead Gods that founders just gave up. They just quit. They just stopped doing it because there's too much pressure for them. And I noticed that Frank could handle the pressure. And I noticed that he was willing to pivot. And I noticed that he could communicate with the community really well. And with all of those factors combined, as well as cool art and the Dust and all of this other stuff, I was like, this is the fucking move. Like, let's just see it. Let's play it. I think I put 30K into D-Gods then. I was like, fuck it. Like, let's see what the fuck happens, you know? So a lot of the things that I do when I'm making trading strategies honestly have nothing to do, like almost nothing to do with the art. Like I think the art has to be somewhat cool, but like really have nothing to do with like prices or charts or anything like that. It really has to do with how I'm observing the founder interfacing with the community, how I'm observing the community interface with one another, and the overall general consensus of what is being built. Because as you can kind of as I start to see like a community start to formulate around something, I can make a general consensus for myself about how well I think it may or may not do.
That's amazing. Like this is so freaking valuable. For a lot of people, investing is a like intellectual thing, analytical thing. It's all right, what are the pros and cons? What are the likelihoods? What is the percentage? What are the numbers? Whereas for you, the things you're describing are like objective reasons that you've kind of figured out. But it does seem to me like you're a very efficient data processor because you don't do it with your brain, you do it with your gut. And you take in everything, you take in market sentiment. You've curated your feed most likely for that. Like feed, I mean Twitter and I mean any other kind of social avenue. And you make that work for you. And because, like, it's funny how it ties back into the beginning of the conversation, but because you're relaxed, you're conscious, you're not drained, you have energy, you have confidence, and you're letting things, you're very balanced in the fact that you go out there and get things and you let things come to you, that these, that you trust in these, and that you can go for it.
Yeah, and I'm also like, I do my best to, and I think I'm probably a little bit better than most people at it. Like, I don't expect shit, you know? Like, I think most people buy an NFT or buy into a coin and expect it to go up, you know? For me, I'm the opposite, bro. I'm just like, I don't give, like, it's not that I don't give a fuck, but like I take the mentality of I don't give a fuck. You know, like this could go to the fucking moon. It could go straight to zero. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But as soon as I make an investment, especially in like an NFT, I consider the money zero. Like I consider it null. Like there's no reality in my head where I'm sitting around all day daydreaming about, oh, well, if this NFT hits 1 ETH floor, then I've got 10 ETH, and then that 10 ETH turns into 50K because ETH goes to, no, I don't do that shit. You know, I don't waste my time doing that shit. I think a lot of people do, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of people have unspoken expectations around where they want price to go or where they think price might go. And that leaves you stuck. It leaves you in this position where you're always thinking about your assets. When I buy something, I already consider it zero. It's gone. It's nothing. Like I don't have any capital. It's gone. There's nothing there, you know. And I'm okay with that. I'm cool to play that game because I'm not willing to live in fantasy land. I like to live in reality. And when you can do that, you become a much more successful trader because you're no longer worried about your losses either. You know, I think a lot of people either beat themselves up about their losses or project their blame onto other people about their losses. And that's what I notice a lot on crypto Twitter is like, oh, dude, I bought this NFT. You told me to buy it, dude. I saw you tweeting about it. I bought a bunch of them. Now it's zero. It's like, first off, most of the time, no one's telling you to buy anything. Like most of the time, people are just sharing what they're buying out of their own excitement or out of their desire for their fucking bags to go up in reality.
And even if they do tell you to buy something, like you're the one pulling the trigger.
It's still your responsibility. And so people think it's a little harsh when I say this. I tweet about it a lot. I say it's all your fucking responsibility. And then people are like, well, what about the people that are manipulating the markets? Or what about the influencers that have inside information? I'm like, yeah, well, welcome to the fucking game, dude. Like, it's not just crypto. You want to go play another game? Like,
and it's so easy to see. Like, if you've spent 5 months in this game, you see when something is being hyped, pumped, manipulated, and that's why the blockchain matters in this. Like, go look at the transactions, go look at the wallets, go look at what's really happening. If you still decide to pull the trigger, like the only one to blame is yourself. This is like everything we've talked about before. Like, there's always a balance. There's the extreme, there's the all right, own your shit side of the thing, and there's obviously the bad actors that we need to deal with and that we need to be more mindful of. But since we're more focused on the individual, I'm definitely with you here. How do you deal with because we agree, it's one of the first things you said, I think, in this conversation, because the realization you had about NFTs being that like needed addition to the Web3 game is exactly the same one I had, and what drove me to launch my initial project. I was like, oh man, like this is what was missing to glue communities together, because there is attachment. You really are a member of something. How do you deal with that? Like, do you have NFTs in your wallet that you're like, yeah, I just vibe with this so much. I'm emotionally attached to this or to this team or to this group, and I'm never selling?
I think that I killed that part of my, like, it's kind of maybe a harsh word, but I think I killed that part of my insecurity, potentially. We'll see next bull run. But I definitely was able to tame it to a solid degree when I sold my last Bored Ape. You know, my last Bored Ape was my profile picture forever. It was the cheetah with the big grin and the heart sunglasses and the hat. I'd spent $150,000 on that ape. Like, I'd never spent something Like before that ape, I'd never bought something that expensive. For me, I think a lot of like my practice has been not getting attached to assets. And it's a different game than most, because like when you have a lot of attention, you have a lot of followers, you start tweeting about your assets and people start identifying you as those assets. It can be very, very easy to blur the lines. And for a very long time I did. But with my last Bored Ape, I specifically remember like everyone's like, dude, that's your forever ape, bro. Don't sell it, bro. It's your forever ape. Da 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 da. You know, and like part of what I had to do in order to like evolve and take my shit to the next level was sell it, you know, and to take my human and my experience to the next level, because it's all good and well to build a brand and build IP off of something, but you're also building IP off of a speculative asset that could earn you a lot of money, that could actually be utilized to better and benefit your life. And for me, that was the big thing. You know what I mean? I realized, did I want this monkey picture in my wallet, or did I want $300,000, $350,000? You know what I mean? Where I could put a down deposit on a house, where I could utilize it to trade and make that into $1 million, where I could do 100 different things with it. You know, and so for me, it was a lot of it was a deep practice of not like getting attached to assets, which is why I kind of like now on Twitter, my profile picture is me, you know, because like I personally have a rule. If I tweet about something like an asset, like specifically like an NFT asset, like I just don't sell it for at least 2 weeks. That's my bare minimum. You know, maybe a week sometimes if the price is really going crazy. But like if I tweet about something, you'll never see me sell it in the first 24 to 48 hours. 100% no. It's just a moral rule for me. I realize that my profile has like some sort of influence and some sort of like movement with the markets. And so if somebody else is buying an asset that I'm tweeting about, even if I like didn't tell them to buy it, they're still influenced by me to some degree.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like a moral thing. Like I like to wait a couple of weeks, even if I lose a lot of money on it. It's part of the way I like to operate and navigate in the space. Like people might be able to say Fxnction dumped on me, but it's only because I'm actually a good trader. It's not because I was manipulating like my audience to buy things so that I could make money off of them. And I'm very, very strict about that. But when it comes to the actual PFPs and things like that, I like having a personal image now, just myself, you know, mostly because now I don't have to worry as much about that. You know, I think what a lot of people don't realize, and maybe this is only a unique individual experience to me and not other influencers, but I think it goes past other people with large followings as well. I've talked to a couple people around it. Like a lot of us lose money sometimes because we're like public about things, then we feel bad about potentially selling them when the price goes up. I know I do. I know that
it's probably more a you thing than a general thing, but yeah,
probably,
I get the feeling.
you know, I've spoken with a couple other people about it. I spoke with like Ice Knife about it. He's in a very similar consensus, and a couple other people are too. So maybe it's not, maybe it's more of the minority rather than the majority. But I know like for a fact that like when I tweet about something and I share it publicly, it influences my audience to a degree, whether I want it to or not. Like it's just natural. Like some people look up to me because of the trades that I've made, because of the followers I have, because of my story. I don't know why. Just like a lot of different factors that people would look up to me.
And so they trust you.
And so they trust me, you know, and no amount of money is worth me abusing that trust. And especially not for a couple grand on flipping a coin. Never has been, never will be. But it's also very, very interesting and challenging to navigate because like part of the fun for me on Twitter is tweeting about the things that I'm buying and then starting to interface with the community that is already a part of that NFT group. And so that's really fun for me. But also the other side of me is trading in order to make money, you know?
Yeah. So you got to find that balance.
Yeah. It's a unique balance. And so I definitely won't claim to be like that. I have been the best at it in the past, you know, there was a lot of things that I tweeted about that I was just having fun about that like I lost a fuck ton of money on, and I'll assume that other people did as well. But it's also something that like I'm working on getting a lot better at and being a lot more strategic towards. Like you don't really see me tweeting about many NFTs unless I'm like directly supporting a creator who I believe in, mostly because I also want to be able to fucking sell them. to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I want to feel good about being able to sell them. And that's the main thing to me. Like, I don't like to make money and then feel like shit about the money that I made. Some people don't care. Some people just actually don't give a fuck.
Or the opposite. Some people are actually looking for that, using that platform, since we're in such a liquid and small market still.
100%.
Like people with even half your platform could have a significant impact on markets and are actually abusing that position. And like anonymity also plays a part in this, obviously.
Totally, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely a much larger factor when you're not anonymous and when someone can walk up to you in an event and kick your ass or try to kick you know. But it's also like, for me, it's also like, to feed off of that, it becomes very challenging because then I run a business in Web3. We run Ratios, our marketing and advisory agency. You know, on the marketing end, we specifically take over people's Twitters and run them for them. You know, NFT Inspect is one of our clients, a couple other big people. And then on the advisory, thanks. And then on the advisory end, I specifically work with companies one-on-one to help them navigate the space a little bit better. You know, sometimes that, like most of the time it's on the back end. Sometimes it's on the front end a little bit, like helping them run spaces. I never tweet mint links. That's my rule. I never tweet about like buy this now, but I'll retweet product updates and things like that. But then it also becomes very like, feeding off of your point, it becomes very like strategic and challenging for me, which is what I'm still learning how to do and how to navigate that with the highest integrity. Because sometimes I won't name names, but sometimes I have people coming to me and telling me all of these stories about what they want to build. And then I host a Twitter space with them. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, I don't know if we're going to do this anymore. And I'm like, guys, like, what are you talking about? You know? So I think, I hate to say there's intentional bad actors. I do believe there are some intentionally bad actors, but I also think that a lot of the people that are labeled as bad actors many of the times are just people who failed at business, who can't handle the pressure of actually running something and massively fail. It's not an excuse, but it is just another factor to involve in the awareness conversation of like how this game works. And for me, it's like, as we've opened up our the advisory wing of our business over the last 2 months, it's been very interesting for me to navigate that and to figure out who is really around for the long term and actually wanting to build something and who's just trying to blow smoke up my ass. Because you really can't know until at least a couple weeks into working with someone. Usually, honestly, a month or two is where I start to see like the red flags or the green flags, you know, and you really can't know until you like get deep enough in the weeds with someone what their intentions are. You can hear their story and you can hear them talk about what their intentions are, but a lot of the times people don't even realize that they're lying to themselves. And that's been like the very interesting thing with navigating running an actual legitimate real business that's also tied to my reputation to some degree, because the last thing I want to do is start talking about a project that I believe in because they've sold me on their vision, but their vision was also kind of cap and it was kind of a lie, you know? So I'm still like in that exploratory phase with all of that as well.
And you have you have the right approach and the right mindset, because trend surfing is a real thing in business. And you have an outrageous amount of people who come to the space only for the money, which is why you get like such high all-time highs and such low all-time lows before, or like lows before after. And it's really hard to know who's going to make it. And so what you were talking about, Frank being able to pivot, best sign in the world, because if someone is pivoting, is being transparent with the people who are involved in their community or in their project to a certain extent, it shows that they care, and it shows that they're not all going to succeed, because you might still fail, but at least you're showing the right amount of grit and the right amount of accountability in order to be able to make it, hopefully.
That's what it is for me too, man. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, cool. At least they're trying. You know, I think like I can't say whether the majority is out of malintention or whether it's actually just out of ignorance to how much effort, energy, and time it takes to build something like this. But a lot of people quit early, and they just quit because they can't handle the fucking pressure, you know? And for me, when I'm investing or when I'm working with a company, I like to see that they have the capacity to try. Like, I don't care if you succeed in reality. Like, I'll put 50K into an NFT and say, and because I believe in something, and if you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep doing your thing and doing pivots and like learning how to work, and like, I chalk it up to a good investment in a founder that may not make it this project, but he'll make it next time. You know, my biggest pet peeve is when I put 50K into something and the dude 2 weeks later is like, yo, not working out, not going to do well. Peace, you know, because I get it. I've tried to run many different companies. I've been trying to start companies since I was 18 years old. Like, I love the idea of making a startup.
How old are you right now?
31. And so it's been like 11, 12 years of me just trying things. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it takes. Like, I don't think that most people, I think 99.9% of people will not be successful on their first venture inside or outside of Web3. It's not realistic to expect that of someone. And so I think there's an over accentuation on people calling things rugs that are really just first-time founders trying to figure out how to navigate an ecosystem that they've never navigated well before or deeply before, and also trying to do a startup, which most people like have never even tried. It's very, very hard. Web 2 or Web 3, it's very challenging to be successful.
Even more so with Web 3, because the volatility is insane, the level of scrutiny is insane, and if you have NFTs or a token on the market, the stress it causes, the swings in outside sentiment and your own sentiment. So yeah,
and so I think there's a big misconsumption or misassumption that it's easy, or it like can't, like there's some sort of formula that can make your floor price go up and make all your holders happy. Like I think it's a lot harder in Web 3 too, because in Web 2 you build a product. Let's say like with my app, right? At my first company that was ever semi-successful, I call it semi-successful because I learned a lot and I grew a lot. It didn't sell for a lot of money. It wasn't a massive multi-million user product, but I had 15,000 users on a mobile app once. It's called Social Link.
Nice.
I was 18 years old, 19 years old when I made the fucking thing. So to me, it was very, very successful at that time. And when we shut down, when we sold the company and we shut down, again, we didn't sell it for a lot. We just sold it for a couple grand just to move on. But once that was done, there wasn't 15,000 people at my doorstep being like, where the fuck's my app, bro? I love this app. What the fuck are you guys doing? You know, Web3, you have a lot more eyes on you and they're a lot more critical because they've invested money into what you're doing. People could just download the app.
And emotions.
Yeah,
they're in your Discord. They're like engaging with you. They're bringing in friends. It's a real commitment as well. And yeah, I know what you mean. I've never thought about it that way. That's really enlightening.
It's like that's the way I look at it. It's like you build a product, you sell a product on Amazon, right? You do shipping or whatever the fuck you do. You sell some product. You sell 20,000 units of them. The transaction is complete. The 20,000 people are not sitting there waiting for an airdrop of their next product. You know, they're not sitting there thinking, oh, well, like if only I had a community to interface with this. No, they're using the product. Like I got a foam roller right here. Like, I don't know this company 321 Strong. I don't know if they're in business or not. I don't know if they've failed or not. I don't really give two fucks because I got a foam roller. I use it every morning. I use it every night. It works, and I feel fucking great.
Deal is done.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've never thought about the company ever once besides the moment that I was ordering it on Amazon and then the moment it got here. Like, this is the only time I've ever even considered, oh, this is a cool like company.
Yeah.
You know, I think about what other products they have. I don't sit around like wondering whether or not they're going to release a foam roller 2.0. Like I'm not financially or emotionally invested in it. It does what it needs to fucking do. And it gets me through my days. It helps me stretch. It helps me like relax my body. Complete. Transaction is done. Like in Web3, you buy an NFT and all of a sudden for some reason, probably because of the massive hype of a couple companies like Bored Apes and all this other shit, you see what others have done and you immediately start to expect that this company will do the same thing or will do something similar. And so you're sitting there with all these expectations. A lot of people sit there with all these expectations and they say, I want like this utility, I want that utility. And when it's not delivered, like, or when it's not delivered to that person's expectation, they just go on Twitter and they shit on the founder. And sometimes it's justified. I'm not going to say it's always not justified, but a lot of the time it's not justified. A lot of the time it's a founder who loves the space, loves the idea of community building, loves the idea of connecting with other people, created a project, wants to build it, and just gets beaten to fucking death by people who are just angry that they invested $20 into something. And aren't taking deep responsibility. You know, I think there's just a misbalance of it right now. We focus so heavily on founders that are bad and have malintentions and are rugging and all this other stuff, but we don't focus enough on like, you bought it, dude. Like, it's your personal responsibility. Stop fucking crying about it. Learn to make better fucking decisions, and maybe you'll actually make it next bull run.
Letting it sink in. Yeah, there's so much truth in what you're saying. It's also important to remember that this is a very young industry, and I don't think there are a lot of bigger believers in decentralization than myself. For me, it is the solution to capitalism. It is the only way that we make capitalism work. But I'm also very mindful of the fact that like we still haven't figured it out. Like, I've been building the ecosystem have been working on, and we had our like small successes in the beginning, and then we had to go back to the drawing board when the market stopped, and now we're back to building something deeper that's going to have a bigger impact in the world, hopefully. And like, I'm so aware that the struggle is not over, that we'll face more obstacles, and that the scrutiny is only going to get bigger, and that I am part, like you are, like others are, of a wave of entrepreneurs that's going to have to figure shit out and to set things up to, like, I think about alignment and balance a lot. They're like two concepts that are super important, and alignment between team and community, which should be just an extension of each other. That's the way I look at our ecosystem. That, okay, we're a team of like right now about 20 co-founders, but this is just a part of the community. It's one that's more involved and whose goal is to be transparent and to include more and more people who will have proportionately probably less involvement. But like, yeah, that we're gonna need to figure out a balance so that people know what to expect, where it's not like surfing on hype and just like playing the game of managing expectations and trying to see like, oh, let's not just say too much, and building real products and doing real things. But yeah, there's a lot of learning to be done.
100%. And I think it just takes, I think when you said it's a young industry, you're talking about how it's new, and it's also a young industry in the fact that there's just a lot of young kids here, man, especially on Solana, man. Like, that's what I've observed so much about Solana. I think Solana attracted a lot of the younger kids, the 18 to 21 year olds that are like flipping shoes on the internet, making $50 here and there, and think they know everything about business. And I think that is a good thing in some aspects, but in a lot of aspects, it brings a lot of immaturity into the ecosystem. And what I mean by that is it just brings a lot of these people that are constantly complaining and whining about what is or isn't right, and makes it very, very challenging for people that are actually really building and who have been through other experiences to actually be solidified and build. You know, like, in reality, if you're 20, 21 years old and you've never tried to start a company, or maybe you've even tried to start one company, you have no right to tell another founder that he's rugging the company when he's trying every fucking day. And I think it just comes with a lot of age immaturity, to be honest with you. I think it comes with a lot of like entitlement Like the kids think that they like should be making money because they saw other people making money. And it's just not how the game works.
Yeah, it's not. And when things were a little bit less digital, when there's less anonymity on both sides, if you're going to step up to someone and tell them like, you suck, you're rugging this company, you are accountable to your words. Whereas on the internet, where you have a PFP, where there's nothing about you, it is so easy to go on someone's tweets and say like you exact same thing, because nothing's gonna happen to them. And that's also, oh yeah, man, yeah, that's also a big subject for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of, that's what I noticed a lot when the people that hate on me, like none of them would ever say shit to my fucking face. In fact, I'm always traveling around the fucking world. There's most likely a time that I've been in your city and in your fucking town. If you really don't like me that much, come to my face and tell me. You know what I mean? And that's not a challenge. It's not like come fight me, but it's like it is a challenge in the aspect of like, let's go grab a drink, and after
let's talk about it.
After 30 minutes of a conversation with me in person, let's see if you don't like me. If you really don't like me, then cool. You know what I mean? All good. I ain't really stressing about it. I ain't really stressing about it now either. Like, you don't have to like me. I really don't give too many fucks. I've got people around me that fucking love me, you know, and I love me. And so that's more than enough for me. But when you're judging other people based off of things that you see on the internet, it automatically makes me assume, and I think rightfully so, that you're, like, lack of a better word, you're just not that intelligent of a human. And you're not that self-aware of a human, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that I agree with.
It's probably a little bit too harsh, but what I'm really getting at is like, you're just not that like self-aware. You just don't have that much, like, you haven't spurred your awareness enough to think very deeply. Because there's people that I don't like on Twitter too. I get it. Like, there are people that post shit that I'm like, this is dumb and this is annoying and this is this or this is that. Some of my best friends, I don't like what they post on Twitter. I think it's stupid. You know, I think the shit they're posting is fucking dumb. If I didn't know them, I would probably be like, you're an idiot. But in reality, they're my best friends. And not because of like anything else besides the fact that I actually know who they are, you know, and like, I've met them in person. I've conversed with them. I can see the good inside of their heart. I can see how they care about people and that they're actually a real human. And sometimes on the internet, like, that just gets miscued. You don't get to see that side of the individual. You don't get to see that side of the personality of the person. Anybody, like, I've actually had people come up to me in person at events and say, dude, I've said some hateful shit to you online, man. And I just listened to you talk. I want to like apologize. You don't know who I am, but I want to apologize because I think you're actually a really good fucking person. And I was acting like an asshole. And like,
amen for those people. Thank you so much for existing. Whoever did this. It's important to recognize, to realize.
100%. I had a guy come up to me in Vegas and say that, you know, and I was like, I don't know who you are either, bro, but like, I forgive you. Don't worry. Good for you. You know, don't stress on it too hard, because like, you never get the full picture when someone's tweeting fucking 240 characters on the internet. You'll never get the full picture when you see a photo of them online. You make an instant judgment about who they are. And it comes with, like, we all go through it. I go through it. There's places where I'm looking at some of the guys posting and who aren't my friends, who I don't know, and I'm just judging them, and I'm like, I don't like this shit. And like, I have to check myself in that. That's like my own ego check. And I have to be aware that like, that's not the right way to navigate, not just crypto and like the internet. It's not the right way to navigate anything.
Life. Yeah.
You know? And so I think it just comes with a little bit more self-awareness to realize when like, you don't know the full picture about an individual, you don't know their intentions, you don't know anything about them, just because you think you're buddies on the internet or just because you see them tweeting something and getting a lot of likes, doesn't mean fucking shit, to be honest with you.
That means nothing.
Yeah.
And if you're really self-aware and if you're really honest, you view the piece of content that makes you react, you look inside, but you need to be very honest with yourself, and you realize that it's just your problem. It's your thing. It's your thing to that you are then going to project. And that's like, this is something I stand by, that I believe as 100% truth. You see this in all walks of life, especially in relationships, for example. That person on the internet said something, they expressed their thing. No matter what it is, no matter where it comes from, all that matters is if it triggers you, look inside. Why does it trigger you, and work through that.
100%. 100%, bro. It's what I'm constantly doing, man. That's why I like Twitter. Like, I get, like, it's a direct reflection of where I'm at. It's just a fact. Like, I've noticed that the more transparent I am, the more I share my story, the more that I'm working on not hiding who I am, and I'm not being ashamed of who I am. It's a direct reflection to the people. Like, reality directly reflects it back to me. The people that are on Twitter who used to talk shit and used to hate me now come back to me and say, yo, dude, I didn't really like you back then. Now that I heard more of your story and I understand you more, like, I actually relate to you a lot, and like, I hope we can be friends. And I'm like,
I dare anyone listening to this conversation to not like you after it, because you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. Like, you are being vulnerable. You are speaking about your experience, and I have so much respect for it.
I try to do it at all times, whenever, especially when I'm invited into it, like in conversation. It's like, why not? Like, what else am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, in reality, like, there's really there's no other major option. Like, I could front and like put up a whole story and be like, yeah, I'm the richest guy ever. It's not true. You know what I mean? And I'm okay with it not being true. I don't necessarily need like hundreds of millions of dollars. I want hundreds of millions of dollars, but I don't need it. I know I can live off a couple grand a month. It's fucking chilling,
Absolutely.
And so, like, yeah, I don't like the whole. I do my best to not front as much as possible. And sometimes the things that I do are perceived as fronting to other people, which brings up their judgments and their insecurities. And I'm still learning on how to navigate that too. Like, I don't know how to fucking do all that yet,
And we're not perfect, and we never will be. And there's not a point where that you reach and you're like, all right, I am now God and I figured it out. Except psychedelics, because when you have certain experience, you have certain trips, and that's when you reach that point and you touch that point, and it makes you see what life can be. But when you're back on Earth and back in your like physical incarnation, and you always go back to humans. I consider myself to be pretty developed as well. Like, I've done the spiritual work, I've done the inner work, and I'm super proud of the person I've become, and I coming to a place where I'm starting to really love myself. And then I get into a fight with my girlfriend, and I look back at it and I'm like, holy shit, did I really just do that or say that or react this way? And it's okay, and it will probably always be the case to a certain extent.
100%. Yeah, women are probably the best psychedelic experience you can go through.
Amen, brother. That they are. Before, because it's almost been 2 hours, and I'm loving this, but I'm aware that you have probably a rest of your day ahead of you. But I would love to like talk a little bit about psychedelics just before we close off. It's one of my favorite subjects, and also one of my favorite subjects to talk about publicly, because, and especially with like smart, self-aware people who are like doing it for the right reasons, because there's such stigma around it that it's always good to get the debate going. One of the things that I think I've got back the most from those conversations with people who've never done them, and especially in the spiritual realm, like I've been a yoga teacher, so I'm in like yoga, pranayama, meditation, all of these things, and most of these guys are like, yeah, but why use a substance when you can achieve it naturally and without it? What's your answer around such a question?
It's a good question. I'm I'm always very cautious when I speak about psychedelics,
And you
especially
should be.
publicly,
Yeah.
because not just for legal purposes, but mostly because you never know what place someone's at in their life when they hear the story. I've had fantastic journeys. I've had terrible, like, terribly challenging journeys. And you never really know whether someone is, what place in their life they're in. So I want to preface it with saying that I think most states are achievable through breath work. I think if you are intentioned enough, you can most people can get what they need out of just being a little bit more aware and a little bit more conscious of their breath. I never go to seek out any sort of experiences either. That's one of the things that's like a big thing for me. I never am like, I need to go do this. Like, no, it's not really how it works. Like, it comes to you if you need it. And yeah, it's just like a very sensitive topic to
It is.
to discuss, because while I've had a lot of benefit from it, I've also had a lot of challenges as well. It's not ever one-sided, but there's a lot of things that you can learn from a lot of different things in life, whether it be breath work or other spiritual practices that can kind of open you up more to the experience of life itself.
Oh, that's such a the two put together are really beautifully said. The fact that it will come to you and that it does open you up to a different way to look at life. And I think it also responds very well to my own experience with how I like got into contact with these substances, which was I was very unhappy, like way back when in like 2014, very unhappy, got introduced to MDMA. Do not mention anyone. Maybe we'll blur it or blip it or whatever. But I was very unhappy and I didn't really know what I was getting into. And that experience was done for all the wrong reasons. Like when you're young, you just want to get fucked up. You just want to have like a blast and you don't really care about what happens before, what happens after. And I just wish someone, instead of like my parents telling me when I was a child, like, don't do drugs, drugs are bad for you, and the media saying the same thing. And like, obviously being a kid that's unhappy, of course you're telling me not to do it. And then my friends tell me like, let's do it. Fuck yes, I'm going to do it. But I wish someone would have come and told me like, all right, this is what this really does. It's going to alter your consciousness for a few hours, for many hours sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be a good experience. Sometimes it's going to be a bad experience. And there's good in both of them. It's going to show you a different side of life, a different side of yourself. And you need to do it in the thing I always go back to: best environment, best people, and best dose for you. And if you do that when the time is right for you, then it can be something that is very valuable. And I think the world is starting to catch on to that and starting to realize that it can be good, but always like in the right circumstances, looking to be curious and explore and have something happen to you and not like look to get messed up and look to evade or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a very unique balance as well, because I spent most of my early 20s experimenting. And while I'm grateful for all of those experiences, and I think it helped me build myself into who I am today, I also don't really explore with them very often any longer, really at all.
Neither do I.
Mostly because, like, there comes a point in your life where you no longer need to destroy your ego, you know? Like, and I think that's where like a lot of the spiritual practices kind of lead you to believe is the necessary thing. They're like, yo, you need to kill your ego, bro. Kill it. No, that's actually not like the point. Like from what I'm understanding and getting like more of like a download now of is like, it's actually about building your ego and having it structured in a way where it's tamed well, and having it like harnessed well and organized well and structured well. Like it's not about destroying it. Like you want to destroy your ego, have fucking fun being homeless on the side of the street your rest of your life. Like go have fun meditating at a temple in the fucking Himalayas for the rest of your life. Like if that's what you want to do, go for it, enjoy it, do your thing. But like my whole thing now is like, how do I like organize and structure my ego in a way where it's healthy and where I can interface with it in a healthy way, where my ego can interface with my life in a healthy way, where I don't think I'm above anyone or below anyone, where I don't think, but I also don't think I need to like constantly butt up against it and like defeat it. Like, no, like it's like, how do you harness it? How do you like utilize the energy and create something beautiful from it that benefits the world, rather than constantly think you need to beat it down and beat it down and beat it down, because it's really not that effective.
It's not. And you're essentially beating yourself down and up because your ego is a part of you. And by trying to beat it, man, you have no idea how much this resonates. And like, it's crazy how, again, how our paths have been like mirrored in some ways and similar. I did that as well, like trying to kill the ego, trying to be like completely selfless, because I came from a place of being so ego driven because I was unhappy and needed outside validation. So like it creates the dissonance. And
sometimes all you need is just the awareness of that, you know, like some people, like at least for me, and I think other people probably experience it too, when you see the part, when you finally find like, or you finally look at the spot that you've been hiding and you illuminate it and you bring light to it, you think you need to change it. But just by bringing light to it, you've already changed it, which is like the thing that most people don't get. You just need to like look at it and make sure that you're aware of it. And as long as you're aware of it, you're going to get better at managing it, and you're going to get better at like navigating through it, you know. But it's only destructive and dangerous when you don't look at it and when you don't illuminate it. Like when
you don't understand what it is.
When you're hiding in your own pain, that's when you cause pain to other people. But when you illuminate the pain that you've been through and you can see it clearly enough, then you are a lot more aware of what actions will cause other people pain and what won't, you know, and you can make a conscious decision in the moment to like navigate it with skill.
Honestly, man, I do not see anything that we could add on top of that would make this a better way to naturally bring closure to this conversation. This is so
perfect,
so freaking valuable. Before we close, who should come to you? Who should reach out to you, either for marketing or for advisory? What's the best way to reach you? Because I'm pretty sure a bunch of people, if they didn't already want to, will now.
Definitely. You can just DM me on Twitter, or you can go to ratioweb3.com and submit like an application form there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, man. That was awesome. Had an absolute blast.
Yeah, it was super fun. Good questions. Great little conversation.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
The universe. Things.